So you've just reached a point where you've lost your day ones. I'm not talking death, I'm talking death of a relationship. And people would say, well, that's the devil, that's Satan, that's negativity, when in reality, God's the one that promoted it. You're losing your friends, you're losing your day ones because God wants to take you to something greater. And he can't leave you where you are right now to do that. So here's how to overcome the loss of those relationships. I've been through a lot of challenges myself when it came to relationships. And so I've discovered three reasons as to why relationships would need to get sour in order for you to grow from it. Number one, there's less compromise that you're needing to do when you have less relationships. And what I mean by that is when you're in a relationship, not a romantic one particularly, but when you have a friendship of some sort, you are going to relinquish some of your identity in communicating with that person, in having some sort of connection with that person. You're going to have to open yourself up in a way. And it usually isn't 100%. It's usually, less than that. It's maybe like 75% at most that you're giving to that other person about who you are. And so if you can imagine, the more people you're interacting with, if you think about it like a Venn diagram, the less overlap there is of how much you're giving when it comes to this person over here, as opposed to this person over here, as opposed to this person over here, all over the place. There's less overlap entirely. And so at some point you realize that you're never having the opportunity to completely be yourself in most spaces. And so that can lead to you neglecting your identity as a whole. And where God's wanting to take you, your identity has to be at the forefront behind him. He needs to know that you trust in him, to know that he's called you specifically by name to the place that he has designed specifically for you to fit in. And he can't trust anybody else with that. That's why you were made specifically for that. I don't want you to get it twisted and think that there's negativity in having a lot of relationships, but understand that if you don't have the right relationships, the fewer, the better. Number two, there's less complacency. I've had my own experiences with friendships to where it's almost as if people are cycling through the same things over and over, as if they're not wanting to grow. There's no reason to grow if there's no driver behind getting better, behind growing in a different direction. If we're all going to be together for the next 20, 30 years and we're not pushing each other to do certain things differently, there's no real point in making the effort to change, because the hardest thing a human can do is change, right? And so why would we oftentimes choose to do that? It's more so because we have some negative outcome that's going on right now, and we're wanting to be in a place where we're not receiving that stimulus or receiving that response from life in general. So when we have that change that needs to be made, we decide to cut things off specifically, and then we make that change, and we a lot of times go full throttle to it. We cut off everything from different aspects of our own being. Like we'll take out certain leisure activities. For example, if somebody is saying, I want to make the change to my physical health, well, I can't be sitting on the couch watching TV for 7 hours out of the day. I need to make some sort of physical change. I need to get up, I need to get outside, I need to walk around, I need to cut the amount of time that I'm walking around doing nothing and instead go to the gym. I can't go out and eat with my friends as frequently because I'm not watching my calories when I'm doing that. Another example would be is if somebody is trying to cut a bad habit like smoking or drinking. That in and of itself is one of the harder things to do because a lot of those things are social. And so in maintaining your decision, you'll have to cut off some aspect of your social being in order to reach whatever goal you've set. This one being less complacency, meaning that you're not in a space where you're continually doing the same thing over and over, and you're fine with not growing in a particular direction. That's not where God wants you. God is not a God of complacency. He's always calling people to greater and greater things that are bigger than themselves at that moment. He's always saying, I'm taking you to the land that I will show you. Just think about Abraham. Just think about Abraham. He told him to leave his father and his father's land to go to something that was greater than what Abraham could fully conceptualize at that point. If he's trying to do that with you, just know that you're going to continue to lose relationships until you find your tribe, essentially. Number 3, less commitments. Like I mentioned with number 2, Abraham was called by God to leave his father and his father's land for something new. If we've created these commitments, almost like these soul ties, to other areas of our life instead of God, it's almost as if we're idolizing those areas over God. And we have to be walking with an open hand, understanding that everything was given to us by God. And not in the mentality of, God will take anything from me, but understand that God is the giver of all, and so he can take things away as well. He will never give you something that you're going to put over him. And he will not allow something, if you're leaning on him, he won't allow something to remain in the same place without giving you some sort of level of conviction to change where that thing is placed in your mind, what pedestal it's placed on, whether it's first podium, second podium, third podium, so on. God should always be first, and everything else follows. And so with the commitment piece, as you are becoming more committed to another person or another identity, for example, if you have a friend group that you grew up with and you're continually staying with them and your commitment is to them, but God's calling you to something else, you're going to have to make a decision. Do I stay where I am right now? Do I hold up to those commitments that I've made and say, I'm going to deny what God's calling me to? I'm going to deny who God's calling me to be in order to maintain the commitments to these other people, which tends back to the complacency and tends back to the compromise. God is not a God of either of those, and we know that. And so if we open ourselves up to the fact that God is calling us to do something greater, we're going to have to give up some things in order to place the opening for him to do those things in our lives. Whether you're somebody who is just graduating high school, you're walking through early adulthood, you just got married, you have kids, you're transitioning to your career path, or you're getting ready to retire, this will remain true 100%. You're going to have to lose some relationships in order to get greater. That's just how it is. Now, how you deal with it, here's how you deal with it. Understand that God is sovereign. Him giving you these things is not the most important thing. What's most important is that what he's given you is supposed to work on you. And so if you take everything as an opportunity to grow, that is always the way that we should look at things, because that gives us the foresight to say, at some point, this may go away. Everything has an end date. Everything has a death date, right? And so understanding that at some point, things will go away. But God's allowing it for this season. What am I supposed to gain out of this? And when it does end, say, I'm glad that it ended, because I know that if I'm leaning on God, it's ending in his timing. And so I know he's sovereign. I can know that whatever he's doing is in my benefit, regardless of how that relationship ended, whether it is by death or by death of the relationship tie in general. I know that God's doing it specifically, or he's allowing it specifically. So what kind of wisdom can I glean from this? And then after that, you ask yourself, how can I use that to better my environment, my surroundings, myself, and my community? If you have that focus, you will 100% make sure that any loss you have comes out to you becoming greater. Till next time. Peace.